5:15, the meeting will come to an order. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice attendance tonight. Nice to see that. Our roll call shows that we have one member missing. That would be Kyle Lauer. Everyone else is present. Moving on, we'll go to, we have an employee recognition tonight regarding lifeguards Carter Spore and Sophia Polking. And go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we're here to recognize two employees for their exemplary duties at the Carroll Rec Center. Tonight we have lifeguard Carter Spore and lifeguard Sophia Polking with us in attendance. On December 20th, around 5:15 p.m., we had a medical emergency in the aquatic area, and both of these young lifeguards went above and beyond and did exactly what they were supposed to do, did everything to a T, and we feel like that patron is much better off because of their services. So tonight we just want to recognize both of them for their exemplary duties while on duty. I'm great with words tonight. But you know, the reason we're starting to recognize some of these employees is because we feel like not enough good is shared in this community sometimes. So we wanted to highlight what these two young lifeguards have done and give them kind of a nice little round of applause and recognition for those duties. So have you guys both come up here. I didn't do anything.
Thank you so much, both of you. We really appreciate your efforts and your work, and thanks for coming tonight.
Good job, guys.
Okay, we'll move on to, we have the airport
So
commission.
one quick thing, Mayor.
Pardon?
You guys don't have to stay, by the way. Just letting you guys know.
You're free to get out of here. Sorry. Next agenda item is the airport commission fiscal year 25 budget. And please state your name and be ready to, we'll be ready for you. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Manager, and City Council. I'm Norman Hutchison, Chairman of the Airport Commission in Carroll, Arthur New Airport. With me is Greg Seaman, who's one of the main members of the Carroll Airport Commission also. And we're here to answer any questions you have about our city airport. A lot of people don't really realize what's going on out there. It's a very active airport. In fact, we had a couple jets land this afternoon out there, so it's been a little squirrely the last 3 or 4 days, but if there's any questions or anything, I'm going to let Greg do most of the talking because he's, a lot of these financial figures, he's more familiar with them than basically I am. So I'll let Greg take it over from here.
Thanks, Norm. I'm Greg Seaman, and I prepared this brochure that I handed out to everybody, and I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone has about that. Basically, I think it's important for the council to have an understanding of how this whole airport thing works. And the first part of this, the first section of this brochure is the Airport Commission. It explains how it works under the city code, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Our Airport Commission, along with the library, are recognized in Iowa as the two autonomous boards every city has that can do about everything except sell the library or sell the airport. We're given a great degree of flexibility in our operation of the airport, but we depend on you, the city council, to fund our operations. So we try to work closely together with you and try to answer any questions that anybody ever has and keep you informed of what our projects are. Now, next is a primary Bible that operates how we deal with the airspace around the airport. And that's our airport zoning regulations, which are a combination city and county ordinance protecting the airspace surrounding the airport. All of you should and do, I'm sure, remember the litigation we had a few years back over the grain leg located south of the airport. And we've been working quite closely with the county planning director and zoning director so that a situation like that does not occur again ever. And we are happy to report that our relationship with the county with respect to that is working just perfectly. We know about everything that goes up in this county that's higher than about 25 feet off the ground. We want to take a look at it and make sure it does not affect the airport. And they've been very cooperative. Now, the next section explains the Carroll Airport Commission and what our duties and responsibilities and functions are, along with each of our names, when we started service with the city, when our terms expire, what our cell phone numbers are, and our addresses. So by all means, if you have any questions, please call us, because we like to maintain good communications with the city council. Now, my next section of the brochure is simply a series of 3 different maps. One thing about our board that's important for you to know is that it's a very technical board, and the members of our airport commission have to have a workable understanding of what this aviation, and I'll hold it up because it didn't come out too clear in the print. This is a portion of a sectional chart which describes the Carroll Airport on top to the right. Top right corner is the Carroll Airport, and the Airport Commission has to be conversant in everything that this chart shows, depicts, and represents. The next 2 sections are maps of our instrument approach procedures. And again, I can tell you that the members of the Airport Commission, at least I hope everybody can explain this to you, but you have to be conversant and have to have a working knowledge of what exactly this means, because it's vital to protect our airport, that members of the Airport Commission have a deep understanding and a workable knowledge of this. Now, the next section of the brochure contains our current project and how it is funded and where we're at as of today with the spending, the grants, and what this project is. What we are doing is a conversion of our incandescent runway lights and runway ramp lights and taxiway lights to LEDs. We feel that we will save in the neighborhood of $750 or $1,000 a month in electricity costs by doing this project. But more importantly, American manufacturers of incandescent replacement light bulbs for airports have ceased production because almost every airport in America is doing a conversion project to go with LEDs. We don't have much choice but to do it because I think there's only one supplier left, that is a Chinese supplier. They're very expensive replacement bulbs, and they are also poorly made, and they've been a problem, but that will go away once we get our new LED lights installed. That lighting project will physically start at our airport in the spring of this year, just as soon as the ground unthaws. They're ready to go to work. We estimate that the project will be a 30-day project with the operations interfered with at the Carroll Airport, probably only for 5 or 6 days. Now, I wanted to explain, and I've gone to great lengths here to explain how our sources of funding for this project. And our funding sources come, and this is true of every project, they come primarily from AIP funds, Airport Improvement Program funds. Those are funds generated principally by fuel tax revenues for aircraft fuel. Carroll is allocated $150,000 a year. We can bank up to 4 years. And that's the primary source of funding for our LED project. Now we have a secondary source of funding because of the bipartisan infrastructure law that will provide $304,000 worth of funding for this first 2 years of the project, and then an additional $80,000 worth of funding will wrap the project up. And then the third source of funds is you, the City Council, and the taxpayers of Carroll. The way federal funding works, most of these grants are either 90% grants or 95% grants. The LED conversion project is a 90% grant, with the citizens of Carroll responsible for a little over $120,000 worth of the $1,204,000 project. Now, even though I said you could bank 4 years of funds, but what we've done is worked with the FAA to get a grant in place so that we didn't lose the 2020 federal fiscal year funds. So we've grabbed them, and we've worked with Laura to make reimbursement requests of the FAA so we didn't lose any of that money. So we're basically depending on 2020, 21, 22, 23, and 24 federal funding to pay for the 90% of the federal portion of the project. I show a cost structure in here for what this whole thing, the cost breaks down, and we're mindful and as careful as we can be about generating costs for the project. One of the problems that we have, and one of the problems that we've experienced with the last number of projects, is that engineering costs, for whatever reason, have increased dramatically. And both for design construction costs and construction engineering costs, design engineering costs and construction engineering costs. And I want you to know you'll see that those costs represent a significant portion of the project costs, and we're doing the best as we can to keep those costs under control. And I know the city's experiencing the same kind of problems, I believe, with the engineering firms that we all hire. And if the question arises, why are you using expensive engineering firms for these projects? We don't have any choice, because we can't get federal participation without design engineering and construction engineering, just like you, to comply with the Iowa Code, can't get a project funded or completed without doing it the way the state wants it done and incurring these engineering costs. Now, to move on, I've also got on page 3 a description of the invoices that we've received to date for our project, and we keep track of the reimbursements as well. And we've been working with Laura because it's all quite complex. There's a system called the Delphi system that has been a learning process for Laura and the Airport Commission. but it's all worked out so far, and the city is out about $17,000 so far in unpaid invoices that we're accumulating till we have enough to submit. We're in good shape on not only the submission of the invoices for reimbursement, but the actual reimbursement of the project costs. We're in very good shape. We expect the project to be completed within budget sometime early this summer. Now, the rest of my presentation is our 24-25 projected budget for the Airport Commission. And I want to say this much about that. We have run into a little problem with our budget when the Danner grain leg fiasco occurred, because we funded our litigation costs out of our budget. And what that meant is that we have to do that was 60-some thousand dollars. We have deferred some of our equipment planned replacements because we haven't had the money in our budget. But what we've done is we have in the last 2 fiscal years, as you may know, we returned about $50,000 from our budget in the fiscal 22 year and nearly $50,000 in the fiscal 22-23 year. And we would hope to be in that position again, but we do have some things that we've deferred replacement on that we're going to have to replace. And but we'll get the most use out of them that we can before we have to do anything about replacement. So we're in good, to make a long story short, we're in good shape out at the airport. Don Minson is our airport operator, does an excellent job. That airport, for the most part, stayed open through all this bad weather, and we have had several, the small aircraft have not really been flying, but we've had several jets this past week during all this bad weather land at the Carroll Airport and take off at the Carroll Airport. And I think you said two landed today. Yeah. We're averaging about 2 jet-powered aircraft a day at the Carroll Airport. So we're open for questions.
Greg, I have one on the $150,000 that you get from the fuel tax.
Yes.
You only get what we sell in fuel.
No, that's a national prorated tax, and I want to say it also includes an item I did not mention, and that would be passenger fees of boarding airline passengers, but we don't know to what extent what funds would. All we know is that our airport is of the size that it gets $150,000. It's in the category that gets $150,000 a year. Now, I want to say this much about our airport. We've got the regional airport for this area, and it was not done without a great deal of difficulty on our part 35 years ago when we got the big runway. The big runway was going to Denison because of their extensive meatpacking industry. That's what the FAA had programmed to put the big airport over there. We made many trips down to Kansas City meeting with the FAA to convince them that this town was a progressive town. This town was doing things and was making progress, and this town was the town to put the regional airport. And we convinced them to do that. And we did a couple of other things. We studied things very carefully and realized that it wasn't going to be enough just to have a 5,500-foot runway. For the traffic that we expected, and time has proven us right, we needed it to be wider than normal. We needed it to be not 75 feet wide, but 100 feet wide, because at that time, there was a transition occurring in the insurance industry to go to require that width for corporate jets to ensure insurance coverage. We did that, and there it is. And now we have more operations at our airport than all the towns around us combined. So I again ask are there any questions? I'll be happy to attempt to answer them.
I have a question. What are the average number of flights per year coming in and out of there? I would say minus the helicopter that comes for 3 days that's flying every 5 minutes.
Jason, we're not counting the helicopter.
So I
but-
have you at 730 flights?
Somewhere, let's put 650 to 750.
650 to
average per month
Okay.
for the Carroll Airport. And that's federal and state count as well as ours.
Okay,
It's
and-
not,
And Jason, let me say this about this. When someone takes off in an airplane, all the aircraft that are equipped for flying from airport to airport, except for perhaps some ultralights and experimentals, are equipped with broadcasting transponders. And I would assume you've heard of the app called Flight Aware. You can look up an airplane and see where it's going and see where it's been, and look up the activity at the Carroll Airport. Well, that aircraft sets off a radar signal that's picked up on FAA computers. And so they track accurately aircraft traffic at every airport.
Okay, track, see at 730, that the cost was $16 per flight on that one. What is the average cost of a taxpayer per flight?
You mean taxpayer of Carroll,
Yeah,
Iowa?
taxpayer per Carroll. Carroll puts in $120,000, $200,000. We have 170 flights. What is the average cost per flight?
I didn't bring a calculator.
Oh,
with
yeah,
me.
no,
Or I
I'm
could
just,
tell you-
that's just what I'm wondering, at 700,
Or-
I have a calculator, and just on this project alone, it would be $16 a flight. And so, per year, what is the average cost of taxpayers per flight?
Well, if you've got it figured out, I can't tell
I
you.
just have
without
this
a
one
cal-
year, though, I just have this one project of the 120,000, I guess. That would, and I understand the importance of it, I'm just wondering for my own benefit, what is the cost per flight for the average taxpayer?
Well, I couldn't tell you that without,
Okay.
I could certainly calculate
Okay.
it.
And that's what I would like to see that, I guess, you know.
Okay, I'd be happy
Okay.
to calculate that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just don't have a calculator.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Can't do it in my head.
Yeah, that was my only question, so.
Okay. Now, I thought you'd follow that up with a question that's frequently asked of the Airport Commission, and the question is, why don't you charge a landing fee out there to use our airport? And the answer, and nobody's answered that question, but I'll ask the question and answer the question. We can't. We're prohibited by federal law from doing that. They don't want airports to charge usage fees for the airport.
Okay, then we have also the rental car in there and all that. I'm just wondering from my own personal
Okay,
standpoint.
and I
of,
can
you know,
certainly talk about that too. Are you asking a question about the rental car?
I just, maybe if you can get that information to me at a different time.
I can
before we-
talk to you
yeah.
about that information.
Well, I kind of need the whole number of what is the average cost per flight to the taxpayers
Jason, there's,
with rentals and all that kind of stuff.
there's
And then,
one other thing too that we haven't mentioned. On the total airport property out there, we have roughly 40-some acres of crop ground, is that correct?
We have 40-some acres of
40-some
pavement.
No, of corn and bean ground I'm talking about.
We got more than that.
We have more than that.
Look at
And the income from that
over 100 acres.
doesn't show on this. That income from that goes directly to Laura, to the city. So that income doesn't.
and you can
show.
even include that in. I'm just wondering what the total number, you can include whatever, I mean, just as a whole, I'm just wondering what it is.
I can answer that. I can answer two of those questions. Number one, we have over 100 acres of cropland, but you got to understand our operation. We have over 40 acres of pavement to maintain out there. We've got probably another 40 acres of, probably more than 40 or 50 acres of grass that has to be mowed closely that surrounds the perimeter of the airport and taxiways. Now, you asked me about what was the average cost per taxpayer?
Per flight. Yeah, to the
per
taxpayer.
flight,
Yeah.
To operate.
And you can, and I understand that there's 40 acres, just what is, maybe I'm not asking you correctly, just what is the average flight cost the taxpayers per year of the 720 that you
Yeah,
have
I'll
going
get that
on?
number for
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I understand that there's concrete, there's, put it all in there, just a general number of.
Question about
yeah.
the rental car, you
Well, I
included
would
that?
put the rental car in there, I would put the land in there, what is the total number of
Okay, here's what I
expenditures
think
that we
you
have
want.
per flight?
And you tell me if I've got it
Mm-hmm.
wrong. You want us to take the average flight, the average number of flights per year,
Yep,
and you want to divide it by our budget per year. Divide our budget per year to get a cost per operation.
yeah, cost to the taxpayers, yes,
Yeah.
of what the
No, that's
taxpayers
fine.
it
We
costs
can- we
them.
can
So,
certainly-
yeah, that's,
We
so.
can
Yeah,
certainly.
I don't, I'm sorry if I didn't ask that correctly, but I
You
do
did.
apologize.
You're fine. I
Okay.
just want to make sure I can answer your question.
Thank you.
Okay,
You got two people that are up this year, I see.
yes.
Are they gonna resign? Or you got a search?
I'm pretty sure Kevin will ask to be reappointed, and I assume Dick would be also. And, it's a very good commission, and if you take a look at the men that are on there, and what their vocation was before they were on there, you know, that's why we get along so well. We have an attorney, we have a retired banker, we have a man that is a genuine large farmer that takes care of all the farm crops. And we have, someone else that owns an airplane and is very familiar with the flying, two of them, and that's so most every category out there is well, covered by someone that has an idea of how the business should work. And, it's, as far as the cost per landing, as Greg would mentioned, you know, you take Denison, for example, the amount of money that they've spent on their facility down there would be very comparable to Carroll's. And don't quote me on this, but I think their landings are somewhere around 125 to 150 a month compared to us. And Audubon is small, Rockwell City is nothing. Sac City, Ida Grove, you know, you can add those all together and probably not come up with as many as we have in 1 month.
Yeah, and you can also exclude the FFA money. I'm just wondering what it costs a Carroll resident that lives here in their
What you want to
taxes.
know is what does it cost us?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
this is just out of that 10%, what does it cost us? Okay, thank you.
But I want you to remember though, Jason, operating an airport is a little bit like operating a city park. In other words, you've got to have parks, but they don't generate the revenue that equal to their costs. And the airport is a little bit that way. You know,
I think that you're interpreting this, I'm like challenging you. I'm just curious for the masses of how much it costs for a Carroll resident to send off a flight. That's, yep.
I'll get that number
Okay,
for you.
thank you.
So I'd mentioned this a while back that, you know, we're looking for a police car when we buy a new one, that you guys will receive that instead of the renting. So that'll save, what, $6,600 out of your budget when, we're getting close to that now.
We're going to have a discussion about that. Here's the deal, Laverne. Most of the airports that I go to in my legal business, they don't have cars at all. So it's really important for an airport with the commercial, and when I say commercial, I don't mean airliner, I mean business activity that we have using large airplanes. That's important that we have a very nice car as a courtesy car, because you can't rent a car in Carroll anymore. They have to come from Ames to bring a rent-a-car over. So we feel like we have to have a car, and it's got to be a nice car. And we don't want some beat-up, worn-out old police car. We want something nice. Now, you need to know that when we signed this contract with Whitrock Motors, they were not only the lowest bid, they were the only bid. I sent letters out to every car dealer, used car, new car dealer in the community of Carroll. Nobody was interested, and talked to several of them. They weren't interested in the deal at all. So it's very hard to get anybody interested. Kevin Whitrock, by the way, does not vote on this, but Kevin Whitrock really is doing the city a favor to provide a very late model, well-kept car out there for use of corporate customers. At the rate he's charging.
All right, any other questions?
I just got a quick one. Like when you talked about the engineering fees, when you guys started this project, did you guys get a bid on it? Was that their bid up front?
The way it works is what we do is pick an engineering firm first. Okay, we use McClure out of Ankeny.
Yeah.
And because they have all of our airport on CAD CAM, they've worked on us with every project. Their chief engineer who works with us has been working with the Carroll Airport for almost 45 years now.
Long time.
Long time. And is very familiar with the airport. And he gets along excellently with the FAA. Then we get a bid from McClure for their cost of doing the project. Then we hire a company to review that bid to see if it's in line with comparable costs. That's the way it's done. It's hard to get a bid for airport engineering services because it would be possible for us to get probably a lower bid of some kind, but then we depend on the quality of the work being excellent because we've got to have it done or it gets way more expensive if anything's done wrong. And we've worked with this firm for years. Their work is first rate. We haven't had many problems at all.
Tom, I would add one more thing to that. The airport engineers are getting to be fewer and fewer, far between. So when you're talking about bids on engineering, you're a little bit even more than a rock and a hard place and just getting civil engineers to do streets and stuff like that.
Thank you.
All right,
True.
I have one more.
Okay,
When it comes
that's
to the
okay.
courtesy vehicle that Laverne was talking about, who are we, who are our primary, people landing here?
Okay,
I mean,
now
is
do
it
you mean
specific businesses?
primary land? I gotta ask you to refine that, JJ. The people using that courtesy car would primarily be corporate flyers.
Corporate flyers that are coming to Carroll to visit.
Well, they're not
particular-
just coming to Carroll, they're coming to Carroll, Audubon, Denison, Ida Grove, Sac City, Rockwell City.
But
They're
for example, here in
Jefferson.
Carroll, it'd be Pella, Cormark, some of the bigger industries.
So let me understand them. We're paying for the courtesy vehicle, but they're coming here for those businesses?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Now, when you mentioned Cormac or Pella, they typically, they will pick people up. They will have somebody go and pick people up. But we have a lot of jets landing here. We do not know where they're going or what they're doing, but they are doing something here.
But we don't charge then for our courtesy vehicle to shuttle them to those businesses that they're going to?
No,
Okay.
because our thought is when those people stay overnight, they spend money in Carroll, even if they aren't coming to Carroll. They don't stay in Audubon, Iowa, or in Sac City, Iowa. They stay in Carroll. They go to our restaurants. They use our motels. Whatever else they do, they spend the money here.
yeah, I don't mean charge the person, but I mean, if they're coming here for business, then usually that would be incorporated.
Yeah,
into business.
the courtesy car is not typically used by like somebody coming to visit a friend on a Saturday afternoon. We really are not a weekend airport. We are a 5.5 day a week airport because the use of that airport has changed tremendously over the last 30 years. It has got so expensive to operate aircraft that it's business flying.
Have we thought about charging them a flat fee to use that car to subsidize the payment of it? Like as she said, like a business expenditure?
I don't know if I can answer that question, but I can find out for you, Jason.
I could answer that because we've gone all over. That's why it's called a courtesy car. That's what they expect. And when these people that are flying all over for business, for instance, Nick Nurse came for his mother's funeral, flew in a jet. It's a courtesy car. It's what we do to be welcoming. And I don't believe we have ever had to pay for a courtesy car when we have traveled, like when I've gone with you for business or whatever. So it's just something people at that level of flying, when they're flying in $10, $20 million aircraft, it's what they expect because they know they're contributing. It's just what all other airports do to JJ.
No, and I understand, but I mean, kind of back to Jason's original point, it's costing the taxpayers
Well,
to have a courtesy car when the
Yeah.
police department is willing to provide.
Again, don't.
Our average tax constituent is not gonna feel bad for somebody flying in a $10 million jet here, having to pay $100 to use a car, is where I'm getting at. Like,
But the airport falls in the category, you might say, of common good for a community, like a park, and we don't charge families with children for using our many beautiful parks in Carroll. And it's hard to put a dollar number on the airport because it's something you've got to have, but the economics of that are difficult to put on a spreadsheet. And that would apply to the courtesy car as well. But I can tell you this, our airport has the reputation within the state of Iowa of being one of the best run, best managed, and best operated airports in the state.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much for your
Okay,
time.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes of the January 8th, 2024 meeting, approval of bills and claims, and approval of licenses and permits, which consist of renewal of Class C retail alcohol license for Walmart Supercenter number 17087, and a new 5-day special Class C retail alcohol license for Lucky Wife Wine Slushies. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
second?
All right, Tom moved,
Second.
Jason second. We'll move to a roll call vote, please.
Dirks,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Shrek, yes, Bornero.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
All right. Are there any oral requests tonight from anyone in the audience? Anyone in the public here that's, most everybody's gone now. You got anything to say, Scott, tonight? Not a thing? All right.
Thank you, though.
I did see you back there, even though you're kind of in the corner. All right, no oral requests tonight, so we'll move on to ordinances. And our first ordinance of the evening is the Rolling Hills South 5th Edition rezoning request, second reading. And Aaron.
Just to note, this is our second reading. We haven't received any comments regarding this rezoning request from the last council meeting, so without rehashing the entire rezoning request, I would recommend the council to approve the second reading and waive the third, and then approve the ordinance.
We've probably all read this over. Is there any questions from, all right. First thing we'll need then is we need to look for a motion to accept the second reading, and I'll go ahead and request the waiving of the third reading in this motion.
So moved.
Tom?
Second.
And Jason again. We'll move to a roll call vote on that.
Dirks?
Yes.
Schreck?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Atherton?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
All right.
Good.
All right, motion passes. Next ordinance? Yes.
We have to-
Oh, I'm sorry, I did that
Accept the
last week too.
ordinance, yep.
All right, we need to ask for a motion to accept the ordinance as it was presented.
So moved. Second.
All right, Carolyn and Tom second. Move to a roll call vote, please.
Schreck? Yes. Dirks?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Atherton? Seaman?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
All right, thank you very much. Next ordinance is establishing vacant property code, which we've discussed before. And Aaron.
After the last council meeting, staff went back and made some changes to the code. One was to change the registration fee from 1% of the assessed value to a flat fee of $500 for a vacant property. We also took the vacant lot portion of the code out of the ordinance, so that's not in the ordinance anymore. And I believe that's the only two changes we made. So staff would recommend a consideration and accepting of the first reading of the vacant property code ordinance.
You want a motion?
And we'll make sure you have no discussion first.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, no questions? All right, we'd like a motion for that.
No, I'm not.
What, you're done. You're ready to,
He's good.
you got a question. That's fine.
So we're going to, when is this gonna go in effect? After the third reading, how fast after that?
After that, it'll take, once it's gotta get published, so
Usually within a week.
So we're talking 2 months from now, because you're gonna do one reading tonight, second, or possibly 2 weeks from now, or something like this. I think we should at least have 2, maybe 3 readings, and then, so you're talking after tonight, 6 weeks.
Could be
Okay.
if you do up to the, one reading at each council meeting, then the third reading would be at the second
Right.
meeting, regular meeting in February.
So my thought on this is this is brand new to the public. We haven't done this forever. And I just feel we should, maybe have some type of soft opening for this, maybe 6 months, give people a chance to either figure out, either sell their property or fix it up, or so, instead of 6 weeks from now, they're getting a bill for $500. I just think it would be a polite way for us as a council to say, you've got 6 months from tonight to get it registered, and after that, then you get charged.
Do you remember how it was done with the rental code? Like,
We
was that
did-
done
Well, the
similar?
rental code, that was a 3-year program for one cycle. And the first time, the fees were waived, and then, no, they weren't waived.
The first time that you paid your fees, if you paid it by a certain date, you got 2 years.
Right.
And then now we're on the cycle of every
But
year.
then if something had to be fixed, they weren't, the next time they went back, they weren't charging you for that. Otherwise, now, the second time around, you're gonna get charged because you've already been. So we had a soft opening for that too. I just feel, we're only giving people 6 weeks to figure out what they're gonna do when this has never been up. What's another 4 months after that or so, to be polite to the public out there to figure out what they wanna do.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, follow the same thing we did with the leasing part, the apartment part.
I think we spoke about this and I agree.
Yeah.
Is that something that Aaron could proceed with, rather than enforcement in 60 days? He could get the word out,
Yeah,
communicate with
we don't need to put
owners
it in
and,
here.
just administratively handle it.
yeah.
We can do that.
I just think it's a polite thing to put onto the public if we're gonna be doing this.
Advertise it, coming soon.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Stop by your local meat market to get more information.
That's my thought.
So you would not need to change the ordinance in any way based on the timing in it?
No.
At all?
No, we would just take care of it
Well,
Guide and let
administratively.
people know that we're gonna wait
The
that.
ordinance gives them 180, or 80 days, anyway, 6 months before they have to, so it's kind of in sync already with what Laverne is saying. So they have 6 months.
All right, good point. But I understand, Laverne, if we're not
That's a
going
good
to.
point for
Right.
the public to know.
Anything else? All right, I'd look for a motion to accept the first reading of this ordinance as presented.
So moved. Second.
JJ and Tom, I believe, was the second. Roll call vote, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Coordinaro,
Yes.
Atherton,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Schreck.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay. Last ordinance for this evening is limiting the use of temporary portable storage containers. And Aaron,
Recently, the staff was advised that there was an issue with some temporary portable storage containers being used in residential yards as permanent storage containers. Staff has prepared an ordinance that would allow temporary portable storage containers in residential districts, however, would be only for temporary storage. As far as business and industrial districts, portable storage containers would be allowed. Staff would recommend a consideration and approval of a first reading on the temporary portable storage containers ordinance.
questions?
We had kind of talked about that one. I don't know the address of it. I forgot the address of it. That is grandfathered in, that one that's on that cement slab with the rocks and it's established there.
At this point, no, that wouldn't be grandfathered in, but if you wanted to make that recommendation for a change, we could do that.
I would like to make the recommend for that change of that one. That one, it doesn't look bad. It's sitting there, and so I think it's a shot that doesn't need to be taken.
That's what actually brought all this up, was that one.
So you would want to put this specifically into the ordinance itself you'd have to.
Well, we'd have to state, it'd have to state something to the effect that moving forward, temporary storage units are not allowed in residential, correct, Dave? Not going back to one that's already there.
I'm just trying to find the section here of the ordinance. I thought we may have addressed that.
I think roughly in the city of Carroll right now, I think there's about 5 or 6 of them in residential areas, I think, if Rick has followed up and went through them.
Oh, I only knew of the one.
But aren't you talking in the commercial area?
No, we're talking about residential area. There's what road is that on?
Third Street.
It's on Third. There's one on Third Street that's
Third
on a
one.
platform. It's got rock around it. It's a storage unit, but it's not a nuisance or an eyesore of a storage unit where I think that's originally sparked it. And I think going forward, to prevent having 1 million storage units in here, we should. However, that individual, that he has it nicely placed and things of that nature, I don't think that we necessarily,
Is it fitting the code now, like, in other words, it's in the backyard then? It's not in the front of the,
it's in the backyard. Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the backyard. So
Okay.
everything is within the code of there. It's a storage unit that's sitting there.
Dan, are these in residential you're talking, or commercial?
Residential,
So there's 5 in residential?
I believe so.
Were they all established, like the one that Jason's talking about, like on a cement
I
pad?
don't, off the top of my head, I'm not real sure without having to go back on Rick's notes, but yeah. The one on Third Street, is that the one?
Whitney and Third.
When you drive by, unless you're looking for it, you don't even notice it. It's that established into the property. It's not like a nuisance or an eyesore or something like that.
I think we better find out where those are.
I can get a list and I'll shoot you an email of where they're located.
And I don't know if it's possible if you can get like
That's-
pictures of the ones that are there. I mean, because if they're established in there, I don't necessarily think that we need to go.
We can do that
Yeah,
also.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of something I had said to Aaron today, if we're gonna grandfather any of these in, we need to make sure we have an established list, because we ran into several issues with when we changed the ordinance to no gravel parking areas or parking on the grass. There were several areas that became an issue.
I would just recommend that the council be consistent with what you're doing. I mean, if we're gonna grandfather one in that we know about, we better do all five or six.
That's why I
As
think
long
we
as they
need,
fall into
I think we
code.
need to
Yes.
visually see them first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you that we need to see all 5 of them and then we make kind of that decision. I'm basing it only off of one right now.
You did say they are all in residential.
I believe most of them are residential, yes.
Yeah, we need to look at their condition, look at their
Right,
location. I mean,
I'll
this
get
is
photos of them
very
and I'll email
clear.
them to y'all.
Give
Yeah,
us addresses,
Hold off
so
on
so we,
those addresses.
we can just
Yeah.
table this
Yeah, we
Yes.
better.
for now.
Yeah, because right now, the ordinance does provide that after council would pass this, all violators would need to have things cleaned up in 30 days.
right, right.
So, yeah, that would be a decision for council.
And through the grandfather
council
process,
to-
there's also, we need to put in there the asterisk of, you're required to maintain this thing at acceptable level. Like, we don't want a rusted old dirty, you know what I mean? There has to be some kind of clause in there that it's a presentable.
What if okay, here's just a hypothetical. What if somebody comes to us and they know whom we've grandfathered in? And they come and say, but I can do the same thing and it will look just like, you know, so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. So why are we really working at cross purposes with this ordinance? If you're gonna grandfather them in, are we gonna open a Pandora's box of people saying, well, I'll put mine in exactly that, you know, they will duplicate what we're grandfathering in and say, but, you know, you let them, why not me? That happens.
I did, but I mean, at the end of the day, once the ordinance is passed, at that point, that's like any other law or ordinance that's passed.
But
If you're grandfathered, at that point, you're just, yeah.
People may not see it that, I'm just trying to walk in their shoes.
You gotta have a start date. You gotta have a start date.
Right, that's the concern would be somebody that after tonight decides they're gonna put one up quick. So that's what we
Yeah.
don't. You know,
I
that's the
know, I'm
intent,
just
so we
saying.
wanna just explore
So we need.
the
those
ones that
pictures
we're
tomorrow.
aware of. And if someone else brings something to your attention, maybe let us know that.
Yep.
And we'll take no action on this tonight, if that's all right with everybody, no action at all, no tabling, just, we have instructions, what you're gonna do and get us, Dan.
Yep.
And you have an understanding of what we'll need to change in here, so, we'll just move on from this. And anything else on it? Okay. Dan, I guess I have a question, how are you gonna get that information to us, and what's your
I'll
time
send,
frame?
I'll get
What's your
photos and put
time
addresses
frame?
and I'll put the zoning that they're in.
Okay,
And I'll email it out.
Oh,
okay.
We'll get it emailed out to everybody this week.
Appreciate
This
that,
week,
thank you.
that's all I wanted to know is what you thought you could get it done in what time, okay, so no action on that. Moving on to resolutions, the first one would be Rolling Hills South Fifth Edition, final plat, and Randy?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the final plat for the Rolling Hills South Fifth Edition, which you just approved the zoning for. If you recall, it's 15 additional residential lots, 1 PUD, 6.04 acres. It'll be served by the extension of 2 streets into the subdivision, and also served by public water and sanitary sewer. Subdivision agreement is included in your packet for review and acceptance. That provides for the completion of the public improvements. And as you recall, you have previously entered an agreement for private development that also addresses the completion of the infrastructure improvements by December 31st of 2024. Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting on December 13th did recommend the approval of the final plat. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your Consideration of adoption of the resolution approving the final plat for the subdivision.
Anything? All right,
Second.
Yeah,
make a motion already, somebody did, Tom?
Yeah.
And Jason, second. All right, that was quick.
We move quick down here.
We're on the clock. Time's wasted.
Yeah, good for you.
Roll call vote, Dirk?
Yes.
Seaman?
yes.
Cordero?
Yes.
Atherton?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
You must be very convincing, Randy. So,
That's so far so good.
all right, now, the next one is the water high service pump number 1 replacement. This is the report of bid opening and consideration of the award of a contract.
Thank you, Mayor. On January 16th, we did receive, open, and tabulate proposals for the pump replacement at the high service pump station. 2 proposals were received. They're listed in your memorandum. King Construction is the apparent low bidder on the project. And with their bid of $374,000 for Group A, which is the pump and motor, and $74,000 for Group B, which is the repainting of the piping, the current project estimated cost is just over $507,000. Project is planned to be funded through the Water Utility Fund reserves, and the schedule includes completion of the painting by December 31st of this year, completion of the pump and motor installation by June 1st of 2025. In response to your concerns, the last meeting during the plan hearing, we have prepared a budgetary opinion of probable cost for the replacement of the piping within the high service pump station. And that cost estimate is just about $561,000.
Take the 74 and run.
Thanks for looking that up. Okay.
Sure. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your adoption of the resolution awarding the contract for the pump replacement to King Construction at their bid prices of $374,000 and $74,000.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Tom?
Yeah.
Second on,
Second.
we won't go with the
I
replacement.
just didn't know if you had to ask that first, or if he was
No,
going
he's
to
good.
say it, we could just roll right into it, so.
All right, we need a roll call vote, please.
Atherton?
Yes.
Cordero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes,
Dirk?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Very good. And let's see, the next one we have is the Southgate Road, Middle Raccoon River Storm Sewer Improvements.
Thank you, Mayor.
Randy.
During design of the storm sewer project on South Gate Road, it was determined that the storm sewer would have to be constructed under the street paving. And that was due to major utility conflicts in the public right-of-way. So that required significant removal and replacement of pavement on both Southgate Road and Southdale Drive. I've tried to illustrate the proposed paving replacement. It appears to be much more than half of the current paving would need to be removed and replaced for storm sewer construction only. So that, I think, it gives you the opportunity to consider complete replacement of paving. And that leads to the next question regarding the replacement of sanitary sewer and water, similar to the Adams Street project that we have underway at this time. For the consideration of the sanitary sewer and water systems, there appears to be about 3 alternatives. One would be do nothing, just to replace the repaving. A second would be remove and replace the public mains and the services, which is what we did on Adams Street. A third consideration is removal and replacement of the services only, not the main water line or main sanitary sewer. Okay, we have reviewed the sanitary sewer video, reviewed it. It is in good condition. It's not in need of replacement. And if it ever would need repair, the current technology in lining is a good candidate for this project. The water main, we reviewed our maintenance history on it and have concluded that it doesn't necessarily need replacement at this time either. Wouldn't recommend it. The saving grace with the water line is that it's not under the paving. So if there is something that needs to be repaired or replaced in any point in the water main, at least it's not under new paving. Now, services are a different animal. We don't have any information on the condition of the water services or sewer services. About half the water services will require replacement just to build the storm sewer. And about half of the sanitary sewer services will be underneath this new storm sewer. And it's a 48-inch pipe. It's a large pipe, and it carries a lot of weight. So our recommendation is to replace the services and not the main lines, along with total paving replacement. And we've tried to pull together some cost estimates on doing just that, comparing that to other replacements. The storm sewer project right now is about $3,390,000. That's just the storm sewer project that has already been, design has begun on it. The additional pavement replacement we're anticipating will cost about $900,000. Okay, then total sanitary sewer and water main replacement at another $700,000. But replacement of services only at $235,000. So I've kind of made the comparison here, but the recommendation that we're making is would increase the total project cost to about $4.5 million. And it also delays the project for a year due to the additional work needed in design. It just cannot get out the door this year at an opportune time for bidding. We have prepared an amendment to the consulting agreement with JEO to incorporate their work into that pavement replacement, getting it ready for bid, and the service line replacements. The fees are included in that agreement in the amount of $98,980. Unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of expansion of the project to include total pavement replacement and the replacement of water services and sanitary sewer services. And then approval of the agreement with JEO to get that design work underway.
And you said the water services and the sewer services, those pipes were fine though, but we're still gonna replace them?
No, we don't
Okay,
have
okay.
we don't have any way to evaluate those. You know, we can video sanitary sewer mains. We have maintenance records on water mains, but we don't have information on services. They're all privately owned.
So I assume that they were all put in about relatively the same time?
Yeah, there are really two time frames on this. The Southgate Road was constructed in around 1960. Southdale Drive was constructed in probably 76, 77. So there's two different subdivisions that we're
So
into.
two of them are good, the two pipes are good, what leads us to the conclusion that we have to replace the other ones, I guess? You know, I mean, 50% of them are still good, are we just making an assumption that they're not good?
It's not that they're not good. We're making that assumption to try to protect the pavement. When we have dig-ins into our pavement, the city streets, the vast majority of them are service lines. You know, we rarely have to dig into a pavement to fix a sanitary sewer main or a water main. So that led to our recommendation that they be replaced to protect that pavement.
I guess wouldn't it be all or nothing if they're all put in at the same time, those pipes? It's kind of all or nothing. Like we have 50% of it now new and 50% of it old. To me, it's, you know what I mean? To me, it's kind of a waste of money, I guess, at 50% new, 50% old down there. It's either all or nothing. To me, is how I would somewhat look at it, I guess. Because we could have new pipe down there, but one of these older pipes burst and we're still going through.
I think
Right.
you're defining your old and new is only 10 years apart, right?
What we're proposing though
I'd say
is to
2 years.
replace all of the service lines, which means all of the service lines, which he talked about 50% would have to be replaced anyway because of the construction. So we want to replace all the service lines, but the mains themselves, the sewer main and the water main, we feel are in good shape. So that's the difference. We're not doing the actual mains. It's just the service to each property which needs to be replaced.
Yeah, but these are all put in at the same time, correct? These services, these
Those-
mains.
Depends
Close to the same
on when
time.
they were built.
When the
okay.
homes were built, the subdivisions were, or the streets were actually built,
I
like I
assume the
said,
main would be the longest there because they're
Correct.
running off, so they're actually newer than the main. And if the main is fine, then the assumption is that these were actually put in after the fact because the construction was theirs. So my assumption would be that those are good too.
okay. I mean, it's, our
Right?
recommendation
Oh,
is to
okay,
get them
okay.
replaced.
I'm trying
Because
to, yeah,
they're-
I'm trying to,
They're the problems we have are with services
okay.
in digging up pavements. You know, like I say, we rarely dig into a pavement to replace a sanitary sewer main where there's a break in the main. We've done maybe a couple of times ever. But services, we get dig-ins multiple times every year. That the services just don't last, or they seem to cause the problem. So that's why we're recommending that. You know, in addition, certainly half of the water services have to be replaced anyway, because they interfere with the new storm sewer. And then that new storm sewer, like I said, will be laying on top of half of the sanitary sewer services, quite possibly putting additional burden of weight on those. So those things all entered into our recommendation to you to replace the services.
Are you gonna move the service lines different if we do this because of the large pipe above it, or just replace them?
Just replace them. They're on grade, well, sanitary, we have to move the water services. You know, we have to move them below this large storm sewer, because there is not clearance above it to take a water service over it.
So you are moving them?
With water services.
Yes.
Sanitary services, no.
Okay.
We're
because
not.
That's gravity.
They're on grade, and we have to hit that grade.
So aren't the service lines put in the same time the streets paved?
The sanitary services are,
Okay.
yes. The water services in Carroll are not, as a rule. There are a couple of places that did do that, a couple of subdivisions, but as a general rule, they are not.
Okay.
They're put in when the home is built.
So to get this muddy water a little bit clear, are we looking at doing what we did to Adam Street down there?
With
What you're recommending?
with the exception of replacing the main sanitary sewer and the water main. We did replace those on Adams Street. And that recommendation was made to you after evaluation also, that we had video evaluated
All right.
that
So we did that
sanitary
whole
sewer. It's 100 years old.
Right.
And Rolling Hills is like 60 years old, so. But the water main, we had some history of repair on that led us to believe that it was the pipe itself was beginning to, wear out, to fail.
So now my other question is, I look at your highlighted parts here, is that the highlighted parts, are those the pavement you're gonna replace?
No, the hatched part on those drawings is the pavement that needs to be replaced with the storm sewer project only.
Okay.
If you'd proceed with no change tonight,
Okay.
that pavement would have to be replaced. The highlighted pavement is the additional pavement that we're recommending be
Gotcha.
replaced.
No, just the opposite of what I was thinking.
So it's the hatch pavement, much more square yardage than the highlighted. So that's why we brought this to, it's an opportunity. Nothing absolutely has to be done, but it's an opportunity to do something when you've got that pavement torn up
Alright.
to the extent that it's going to be.
I don't disagree with you. I think you'd
That
replace
changes
it
my
all,
thought. I
just be
thought it was
done.
the highlighted stuff that needed to be
Yeah.
replaced. Now you're replacing 3/4 of it, and you're just asking for another quarter, basically.
Yeah, yes,
I thought it was the other way around.
no.
Okay.
Well, I recommend that then, cause I hate it all chopped up and patched and
Jerry.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
You have a question? You can come on up.
Randy Toft.
Ariane.
Is this the same project that less than a year ago was 1.1 million?
I would have to look. It has expanded,
There was,
without a doubt.
well, okay, so we was at 1.1 million because somebody complained there was a couple of lots that got flooded, is that the deal? That's where that started, that 1.1. Is that why we're doing this? Because 2 lots, that was the original complaint that came to this now?
There's low point flooding down in that subdivision, yes. And it's,
On how many lots?
oh, it probably, sitting in the low point, there's probably 4.
So we can't work something out with the owners to regrade them lots for less than 4.4?
There's homes on all 4 of them.
Well, yeah, but the ground goes like this, into that bottom, right? Off of that street? Maybe I'm in the wrong street. I don't know. We went from 1.1 and 4 soggy lots to 4 point whatever in less than a year. That sounds like a little rough sledding to me, that's all.
Was that the ones where you took pictures of it? Somebody brought
Well,
pictures.
that was the flooding in Rolling Hills Park.
Okay.
And then and then when it got really bad, it extended across,
Are we talking about the same thing?
well, and then there was flooding up above, Southgate too, wasn't there? There were problems all along, both the streets.
I don't remember it. I don't know. I
yeah.
didn't know if it was a year.
Are people's
It's-
houses flooding, or is this like a flooded yard? Or I guess this kind of opened up. I appreciate you coming and talking about it, because I mean, are people's yards flooding or basements flooding or?
Remember which one it was.
We have not had any property damage reported from the flooding.
Because I mean, $4.5 million for some like we can tile and things like that. Is there an option to like tile this out, even if the city pays to tile this out so that it doesn't flood? And I know the creek is right there, and I mean, we have the 100-year floods and stuff of that nature. Has that been looked at, is to tile that out so that that water does not fill up there?
Well, that's what this project does. It takes a 48-inch pipe to tile this one out to handle that flood water. And that's just the design flow. That's not a 100-year flow.
And this is to make these this will make these 4 lots not flood then? And it's just
Well-
the yard, I guess, is flooding, or is it the
Yeah.
actual property?
It will, under the design storm, it'll protect those homes. And then this project also gets water off the street, which is another advantage of having a storm sewer to prolong the value of your street. But it's primarily to drain that low point on Southdale Drive.
Big number. Okay, thank you.
How many actual houses are affected with the new system? With this $4 million, how many houses are in that area? It's not just the 4.
No,
Right.
that's just the low point, and we're
Right.
draining, this project drains the low point down to the Raccoon River.
Mm-hmm.
And properties, I haven't counted them, it's Oh,
It's multiple, it's the whole.
It is, it's about
Oh, yeah.
1,400 feet long storm sewer.
Okay.
So it's all of the homes adjacent to Southdale Drive, from Main Street to Southgate Road, and then those south on Southgate Road to Ely Drive Circle. I didn't count the number of properties it adjacent to.
So the main gain here is to protect our roads along with the
Well,
flooding.
we'll be draining the road, and that does protect it. The low point drainage is important, obviously to the people that live near the low point.
I wonder if Randy's talking about the one that, by the nursing home we talked about at one time. There was a low spot there that we talked about, it'd be about $1 million.
Yeah, that was
That's
down,
the one he's referring to.
I'm not sure. That one was on Maple.
Yeah, right by
It was
the,
Maple, yeah, it
Yeah.
was Maple. That was a whole different
That came
project.
down.
Not the case,
That's not the one?
no.
Oh,
I mean, are there like photos of this flood, like of what this, like, I mean, because that's a big number for me to swallow, $4.5 million for, if it's not affecting anyone's home or anything, that's a pretty big number for me to swallow. Is there like photos of what this flooding is doing, I guess?
I do not have photos of it.
Okay.
Hadn't rained for 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, if it's 4 yards, we're looking at $1.2 million per yard. Like,
That's not the case. It's our responsibility to get the water from our streets to the Raccoon River. And so it's our obligation to have that storm sewer that functions, and that's functioning for a number of houses. It's not just those two. Now, it benefits those 4 lots probably more, but it's the city's obligation to get that stormwater out of there. It's also the reason why we have a stormwater utility.
and is it naturally draining, just taking longer time? Because gravity just naturally will take it to where it needs to be.
it's filling the sewer and it's just running down the street. And there, I think we talked too about all the new homes that were built beyond that, that it's just because of the topography, the smaller, I'm not an engineer, Randy, you can explain it better, but to handle everything because of the additional growth too, we need the larger diameter.
You're right. Part of the consideration is that the storm sewer on Southgate Road was built in 1960 when the Rolling Hills subdivision was built. And since then, we've added housing in the Southdale to the west of there, and then in the Rolling Hills South to the south of there. In fact, Rolling Hills South additions 1 through 4 up on the hill, all drain through this location. So the original storm sewer pipe does not handle the drainage from that growth for the city's design requirement. So that's part of the reason also and we just truncated it at the low point, which is the most important terminus. It could extend farther south. In fact, it does in a smaller pipe size. But we have relief that's working to the advantage for storm sewer runoff south of there.
Well, and you said too, it's degrading the concrete because the capacity is too much, so it's just gushing down those streets. So, up to the council.
All right, I think we know as much as we can about this. Rainey, one more thing quick and,
Yeah, it'll be quick.
okay.
So is there a reason why the developers haven't had any requirements to contain some of that water as all this has gone on forever? We had to do it at the Little League field and make a pond up there, so why aren't we managing this water at its point of hit to the earth instead of spending whatever?
That'd be a good point if it wasn't that this is already built, so, and built before most of us were even
Houses going up
born.
there in that draw right now.
All right, let's see if we have a motion here to, and I'm gonna read this out just so we have an understanding exactly what I'm calling for a motion for. To, expansion of the Southgate Road, Middle Raccoon River Storm Sewer Improvement Project to include pavement and sanitary and water services replacement and passage and approval of the resolution approving the agreement, amendment number 2 with JEL Consulting Group Incorporated at a cost of $98,980. Is there a motion?
I got a question though. Where's the, funding from this coming?
Okay, I've kind of outlined that in the table that's included in your packet. It's from quite a few sources. Stormwater utility is probably the majority of it. We also are proposing some from the water utility, some from the sewer utility, and then bonding in the amount of about.
I don't have it in my packet.
I think it's what I talked about.
It's a table of preliminary estimated project costs.
Yeah, I have it,
Okay.
yeah. It's all from the, yeah.
Right there, the highlighted street parks, there's one little page.
Page 52.
You go down halfway through, it's
Where-
budget.
I don't,
Budget funding right there. I guess this doesn't specifically
the
address the
preliminary.
That's
98,000.
It's
included
the preliminary.
in the 65,000 and 35,000.
And the what, 65, I see that.
65 and 35 in the last column to the right. The design services fees
Okay,
for the ad services only.
right, I
yeah,
see it.
I missed it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, Carolyn moved. Is there a second? Second? All right, Tom seconded. We'll move for a roll call vote, please.
Shrek?
Yes.
Cordero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Atherton?
No.
Motion passes then, okay. All righty. And our last resolution is proposed agreement with city attorney for services. And Aaron.
We received a request from our city attorney, requesting a change in his service contract. As noted in my memo, he's been the city attorney since 2007. We've approved agreements to adjust his salary or pay in 2012, 2015, and 2017. As I've noted, we have a fantastic working relationship with Mr. Bruner and find his timeliness and quality to be very helpful in conducting the city work of our city. The important part of this extensive relationship, Mr. Bruner's institutional knowledge and willingness to assist the city is extremely vital to me as a new city manager. So staff would recommend a motion approving the attached resolution approving the city attorney agreement.
All right, any questions for Aaron on this?
No, but I'll make a comment, and probably to Dave's chagrin, I was on the council when we hired him. So he's had to put up with me all these years. And I have to say that he has really given 16 years of hard work to the city. And he is known throughout the area to be very professional, very competent. He is well respected. And with 16 years of experience, when he's, as Aaron mentioned, he's actually worked on many of our ordinances. He's working on some new ones coming up. And his knowledge and experience is invaluable. And really, he has skills that you don't learn in law school. He's very effective with people. He works well with people, and really, I'm so happy that Dave has been willing to serve this long and wants to continue.
Anyone else?
Is that a so moved?
I was waiting for you,
I-
Tom. You got
Second.
it down.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, if that's all if that's all the comments we have, I'll look for a motion to,
You got a motion in a second.
you made the second. Okay, I
No,
thought
I
if I didn't
think-
call it, it didn't count. Okay.
Jason-
Tom?
Jason was, I think. or
You'll
Tom.
get there, Terry.
Okay, I will. I promise. Okay. All right, we'll go to a roll call vote, please.
Atherton,
Yes, keep up the good work.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bornero,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Stripe.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
All right. Next, we move on to reports and the sidewalk agreement cancellation. I believe, Aaron, you have all the knowledge of this.
Randy does.
Randy does? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
I should have known when it said sidewalk. Go ahead, Randy.
In November of 1993, the city entered an agreement with Greg and Carroll Seaman for the reconstruction of a sidewalk. The Timber Creek subdivision requirements included the construction of sidewalk along the north side of Pleasant Ridge Road. The Siemens did construct the sidewalk along the north side of Pleasant Ridge Road in conformance with city requirements, with the exception of the west 16 feet of the sidewalk. The topography and utilities in that 16 feet prohibited them from complying with city requirements. The agreement, in effect, said the Siemens would rebuild that 16 feet of sidewalk when, in the future, the property owner to the west built a sidewalk to city requirements. The property owner to the west has completed a sidewalk to city requirements. The Siemens have reconstructed 16 feet of sidewalk on their property and now ask the city to cancel the original agreement. And that cancellation is in your packet. It, in effect, states that all the provisions of the original agreement have been satisfied, and then it cancels it. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of approval of that cancellation of a sidewalk agreement.
So moved.
Dave, should I recuse myself? Okay, I recuse myself.
Okay, that makes some sense. Okay.
So moved.
Tom moved.
Second.
Jason seconded. We'll move to a vote, please.
No.
Bornero,
Yes.
Stripe,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Atherton.
Best yes I said all day.
The motion is approved.
All right, very good.
Besides getting you your raise, that was a good one.
Okay, we have a budget overview that we're going to do. We have our new packets tonight, which I didn't admit at first, but it makes a great little stand here for my iPad. I'll get into it after tonight, I promise. So we have a budget overview to discuss quick.
So to try and be a little bit more efficient with time, we thought we'd get a little bit of an overview over section A and B of the book. My overview, this budget was actually went together very well. It's been a pleasure to work with Laura and the rest of the staff as far as getting together a budget. We had some interesting challenges, of course, with House File 718. It restricted the growth of most of the fast-growing cities. Fortunately, we weren't considered one of those this year, but it still restricted us to an extent. The change in the rollback numbers, which went from 54.6% to 46.3%, was actually the big kicker for us with our general fund dollars. So basically an overview of it, House File 718, it combined all of the general fund levies that were essentially voted in the past by citizens that the city could use. It combined all of those levies. It also eliminated the emergency fund levy that the city could use if their general fund wasn't enough to cover their general fund expenses. It provided a mechanism for levy rate to be reduced for non-TIF taxable growth triggers, non-taxable
growth. If it was under 3%, there was no levy reduction. If it was over 3% but less than 6%, it was a 2% reduction, and if it was over 6%, there's a 3% reduction. As I stated in the memo earlier, our growth percent for the non-TIF valuations was 2.34%. The new tax law also provided a new homestead exemption of $6,500. It increases the military exemption from $1,800 to $4,000. The new homestead exemption is for $6,500 for folks over 65 and older. Obviously, a new mailing report that the auditor or assessor? Auditor is required to mail out a different public hearing, and then all of our submissions, our budget submission has to be provided by April 30th. Comparing last year's budget to this year's budget, the approved budget for 2024, excluding transfers, including the expenditures across all funds, was $25,091,163. The approved budget for the proposed budget for 2025, excluding those same things, is $30 million. The increase of $4 million is mainly due to more infrastructure capital project expenditures. The revenues from the general fund are estimated to be $8.3 million, and expenses are proposed to be $99.4 million. This deficit spending of $1 million will be covered by general fund reserves from the re-estimated from the budget FY24, which means transfers or expenditures from last year or this fiscal year that don't get spent this year, that gets transferred into next year's budget. The general fund ending balance is projected to be $2 million, which is the 25% of the budgeted revenues that the council has requested us to follow each year. Despite the challenges with the budget, our overall levy from this year will be our proposed budget is $12.16 as compared to last year, which was also $12.16. So we were able to balance the budget with the rollbacks and the new levy in place and keep the levy the same. We have in our budget, we have Merchants Park as a priority as voted by the council, along with funding to look at the new pressure zone in the northwest part of our city. Debt service levy is proposed to remain steady at $1.40, which includes a $600,000 fire truck, funding to the rec center of $500,000, the West Golfview subdivision project of $277,000. Proposed FY25 budget also includes debt in the amount of $5,495,000 to be repaid by either tax increment financing or other fees, which means we don't use the debt service to actually pay for it. We use other sources to pay for those funding, like tax increment financing or the urban renewal areas. The council has said in the past that they wanted to keep the debt service levy at $1.40, and that is what we've got in place. Employment contracts or employment costs going forward, the contracts negotiated with the police union and with public works unions were completed last fiscal year, or this past spring, which is this fiscal year, but this past spring. The police department is due for a 5% increase to their salaries. The public works union is set to receive a 4% increase. All non-union employees normally follow the public works union. These salary increases have all been implemented into this budget. IPER's contributions for the city have not changed, which means that the regular contributions are $9.44 for the employer and $9.31% for the protected class. Employer contributions for municipal police and fire did decrease slightly this year from 22.98% to 22.66%.
However, since employer contribution rates are based on the funding and the investments of the state's municipal police and fire retirement system, the city's contribution probably will change, and I think projection is next fiscal year, not this budget, but the next one, that our city's contribution will get increased. Notable items in this budget, all identified projects from the CIP were included and funded in the proposed budget. Central Business District resurfacing project of $4 million, wastewater digester and LVR project of another $4 million, and then the US 30 West sanitary sewer and water extensions of $1.1 million. That's the getting water and sewer to the Caterpillar property. It's been a great privilege for me to work for the city here this past 9 months. I'm looking forward to another year. It's been a great privilege, and I sincerely thank Laura, Randy, Brad, Dan, Chad, and Wendy for all their help with putting this budget together. With that, if you have any questions of that overview, feel free to shoot, but I would let Laura move on to tab B to talk about the graphs and comparisons that she's put together.
So before we go to tab B, right behind Aaron's cover memo is the projected fund balances. On page 1 is what's being recommended for the next fiscal year, fiscal 25. And then this page after that would be the re-estimates, because whenever we put a budget together, we have to re-estimate our current year of operations of where we think we're gonna end this current year. And that then becomes our starting point for putting our budget together for the next fiscal year. As Aaron said, we are projecting the general fund to end at 25% of revenues. That's been a policy that we've followed for years and years and years and years. It's something that we do for bonding purposes when we have to go get a Moody's rating for debt issuances. I won't go through each one of these. Some of these, or a lot of these, will be hit upon when each of the departments talk about their specific individual area. So tonight is just to give you kind of a really quick brief look at some of this stuff as you start to go through the budget books. And then if you've got questions over the next 2 weeks before we start our next session, then we can answer some of those questions as well. And you can, by all means, contact City Hall with any questions. Before we go too far behind tab B, I just want to point out in the cover and the inside cover of your book is a schedule of what we plan to go through each night. We're planning for the next budget work session to be on February 5th, which is in 2 weeks. And we list out the different departments that we'll be covering that night. And then the second meeting, our budget work session will be on that following Wednesday on the February 7th. And then the other departments will go. So that way, if you want to prepare which ones are going for which night, you can kind of gauge off of that schedule there. But then, we'll go ahead and move over. Under tab B, I'll go pretty quick through some of this information just to give you a quick little overview about the information. So the first page on page 4 is a taxable comparison of our taxable valuation. Well, actually, we probably actually start in the next page on page 5. When we put together and figure out tax dollars, everything starts with the assessed value of a property. The assessed value is pretty close to, it should be the market value of a property if you were going to sell it to in an arm's length transaction. From there, you apply a rollback that is dictated by the state and says, now that you have this assessed value, you're gonna multiply it by a certain percentage to get to what we call the taxable valuation. That rollback changes from year to year to year. On the residential, as Aaron had mentioned, was a pretty significant drop from last year to this year. Actually, it went down 8.3%. That is the largest year-to-year decrease since 1979, the year after the whole rollback system was put into place by the state of Iowa. Pretty significant. Also, so then, in other words, an average individual home would have needed to increase its assessed value by about 18% to generate the same taxes last year to this year. As you'll see in a few pages, what's being proposed tonight is the taxes are basically gonna be about flat. According to this, and I did have a conversation with our county auditor, our county assessor, about the average increase of residential property in the city of Carroll. if you'll recall, the 1/123 values, which we're working off the values for this fiscal 25 budget, the county went through a pretty significant and extensive revaluation process of all the residential properties in city limits across the county this year. Countywide, she mentioned that the average home went up about 20%. According to this information, it looks like maybe the average home in Carroll went up about 17 and a half. That's average, now it's not everybody. You're gonna have some that went up quite a bit more and some that went up a little, not quite as much. But on average, in a few pages, we figured it out to be about 17.5% increase on the residential property. The commercial property, the assessed values did go up, but it was felt that it wasn't necessarily due to appreciation of the property, but there was actual growth, actual new construction that occurred on the commercial side of things. So going back to page 4, the actual taxable valuation overall for what we call that we applied towards our operating budget, the increase was 2.34%. Overall, all city taxable valuation went up 1.66% when you add in the TIF areas. Any questions on the assessed versus?
So the scare that everybody has on the assessed value being raised higher, that was a scare, has been taken care of because of the change in the rollback.
Absolutely.
Offset it, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
not everybody, so.
I get that, but-
Yeah, it just depends on what your individual home did.
So
But I
that
understand.
scare is gone with the rollback.
The rollback did, I think they help with that, yes.
Yeah.
And the projections for next year is because it's not gonna be a revaluation year across the state, that the rollback probably will not change as drastically as it did this year,
Let's hope not.
so.
The
But,
valuations aren't gonna change like
no,
that.
probably not a
Exactly.
whole lot, no. I wouldn't imagine unless we see a huge amount of new construction.
Yeah.
The next couple charts are just more for your information, just to give you a history. The next one is the residential property tax rollback. It gives you a 10-year look back of what the residential overall property has done in the city of Carroll. The red is the full assessed. The blue, the dark blue is the taxable. So even though the assessed has gone up quite significantly, the rollback has then rolled that back, we're taking that away, so to speak, and you can see the actual taxable valuation on residential property has not changed drastically over the last 10 years. The next page is the taxable valuation of all the city property. You can see we did slowly go up, a 10-year look back, we did go up, and then a couple of years ago, we kind of hit a peak and we've kind of come down a little bit on our overall taxable valuation. And once again, that's gonna be largely due to the rollback and what that does. The rollback has gone down the last 2 to 3 years. The next, I believe it's 3 charts, does a comparison of what we call our peer group. We like to compare ourselves with other communities of similar size. So we've picked out the communities that have a population from 8,000 to 12,000. And we've done a comparison on this first chart here of what the residential taxable valuation each of these communities had for their fiscal 24 levies or the budgets that we're all working under right now. As you can see, Carroll is up on the upper end of a higher valuation of our residential property. The next page is we took a look at the commercial and the industrial taxable valuations. And again, we are on the upper end where we do have higher valuation than some of the other communities. And then the third one is overall the total, when you add all the different property classifications together by each community, you can see that Carroll falls there with the 5th highest out of all of them. So we fare very, very well against our peer communities when you're looking at the communities 8,000 to 12,000. The next page is a narrative that talks about the different types of levies that we utilize. These are not all of them that are available, but it's most of them because they've really, the House File 718 really took away the number of levies that are available to cities to use now. That very first highlighted one there, the new, you're gonna hear it called the Combined General Fund Levy. Basically, the state of Iowa took, let me go to this PowerPoint that Ted Nelson at the Department of Management put together. This, what's shown here, these were all the levies that used to be available to all the cities, or most of them, that you could utilize to generate taxes to support one cause or one service or another in the community. Now it's basically down to just a few highlighted ones here on this page. For us, it was not as a significant impact for the city of Carroll because we did not utilize a number of those. The only one actually out of that list we utilized was the general fund, or what we call the 810 levy. A lot of communities were using the general fund, the 810 levy, and the emergency levy. So now what the state law, House File 718 did is they took all those levies, combined them into one, and so you don't have all these multiples, it's combine them into one. And then depending on your taxable valuation growth, you might have to ratchet that back. Your first tier is if you hit taxable valuation growth of 3%, you in essence would see a haircut, or you had to bring down your levy by roughly 2%. And then the next tier was the 6% growth, and then that would be brought down to 3%.
It'd be a haircut of 3%.
3%, yep. It's kind of a goofy formula. I didn't really study it that hard because in our case, we only saw a 2.34% increase in our taxable valuation, non-TIF taxable valuation. So we did not see that haircut that was put into place, or at least for this fiscal year, we didn't see that haircut. So our combined general fund levy is actually that 810, which we've been at for a number of years. The other levies that are part of what we call the city's consolidator, the city levy, it was not affected by this new combined general fund levy. We also utilize the employee benefit levy, where we can ask for tax dollars to pay for what it says, employee benefits like the FICA, or Social Security, Medicare, IPERS, municipal fire and police, health insurance costs are the main things that we asked to utilize this levy to pay for. As well as the tort liability, that is outside of the this new combined general fund levy. The tort liability is basically to cover our insurance premiums and worker comp premium costs. And the final component of the city levy is the debt service levy, where we were working with PFM, our financial advisor, to maintain that at $1.40. And looking at the 5-year outlook under tab C is our 5-year outlook of projects, which we won't get to tonight in very much detail. But we're working with Suzanne on making sure that we can incorporate those projects and then maintain the $1.40 debt service levy. So taking that narrative and putting it all together, we'll put it into actual numbers. The next page shows then a 10-year history, and then the proposed budget, the proposed levy for this year at $12.16 was about three quarters of a percent decrease from our current 24. Take those levy numbers and put it to dollars, which is the next page, and it shows that there is a slight increase in asking tax dollars overall at 2.19%, about 2.2%. Then the next page, as I just mentioned, that with the rollback going down so much, we did give consideration assuming that a home value on average went up about 17.5% in the city of Carroll. Incorporated that into this comparison here, apply the homestead credit, the new proposed levy, the rollback, and it's shown in essence that your property tax bill from the city is about flat or slightly down under this proposal. And that's across all these different home values at 200,000, 150, 125, and then 100,000. Just to give you an idea of what this might do to typical home in the city of Carroll. The next page then does that same comparison to a commercial property. Starting with this fiscal year, commercial properties were taxed slightly different than what they have been in the past, where they take the first $150,000 of assessed value, apply the residential rollback rate to it, and then the remainder value is rolled back 90%, and to get to a new taxable valuation, that's what the value gets the tax rate applied to. And this shows across the different valuations of commercial property that this would also see a slight decrease for this proposed budget. The next page is a pie chart that shows in this proposed budget all the revenue sources and those different types of revenues that come into the city budget, this city bank account, so to speak, and then what each one of those are and just what percentage of the pie each one of those revenues represents. So as you can see, property tax is a lion's share, and this could shift each year depending on how much debt service or debt proceeds we're planning. But we do have some projects that we'll be talking about in a couple weeks, why the debt proceeds are important this year. And then also we have charges for services is another big area in our budget, where that's your water fees, sewer fees, and then the fees that are membership fees that are charged for the rec, golf, and the aquatic center. So that's another big significant portion of the pie.
I have a quick question here, the use of money, 1.77% interest income and rents.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a lot of rents or what?
No, that would be, the rent for the water tower, that.
Oh, sure, okay. And then the 1.77% is interest income. I mean, that's obviously gone way up. Is that not adjusted for this, or?
No, that is.
That's all we're getting,
We were way low on interest, like what we
like
were
at
receiving.
0.3% or something at one
Yeah,
time?
yeah,
Okay.
yep.
And that's put into a fund through the state, is that right? That,
The interest income actually goes on each of our, it goes into our bank account and such, and I allocate it across all the funds.
right, but that's, I mean, we don't just stick it in the bank ourselves and ask for interest.
Yeah, we do.
We do,
That's why
okay,
that's why you're not making much money.
okay.
Oh, yeah, that's low, like,
Well, you gotta have it liquid. You gotta have it
Yeah.
ready to use.
Yeah, we've got, and we're very.
I'm kinda surprised it isn't a little bit higher.
Most cities have to be very conservative on the type of investments that they can go for. The most common is CDs, so we do have a good chunk of the money in different CDs across the.
We do,
banks
okay.
Across the city.
Okay,
But yes, and then we're quite liquid as well, to be able to pay bills.
I've seen the short-term CDs.
Year, yep.
It's actually higher than.
I would've
Well,
thought.
just
Depends on,
wondering,
depends
that's
on
just
when you
gone.
caught 'em, or
Yeah.
catch 'em.
Yeah, I just, yeah, no, I got you on that. Okay, it is, thanks.
Okay, that's all I had.
The next page is, I take a look at a home assessed at $200,000, apply the current consolidated, so this would be city, school, county, and all the other little ones, and what your tax bill is, and then who gets that tax money. Is it the school, the county, or the city, and then the small portions, and you can see, on the pie, who's getting their piece of it.
I've seen 200,000 is the average assessed value in Carroll.
Actually, according to some information I got from the county assessor, it's a little bit lower than that.
Okay.
It's, 167,000.
Oh, it's in there? I didn't see it, okay.
You'll see that on page 21 coming up.
Okay, well, jumped ahead, sorry.
That's okay. Good question. Good question. As we just got a few more pages here, some comparisons with our peer communities, again, those communities that are population 8,000 to 12,000. This page here shows the consolidated levies of those communities and where Carroll falls. As you can see, our consolidated levy is very low compared to all of our other peer communities. And consistently, since we've been doing this comparison, at least for the last, 10 plus years, Carroll's been one of the low ones down here on the far right side of the chart. Then the next page does the comparison of the city levies only, and we are, the fifth lowest out of all these other communities. And we kind of hover in that area right there, either the fourth or the fifth lowest. And the last two charts actually, they're fairly new charts, and they're very interesting if you ask me. So what we do is we contact each of the county assessors of where these cities are located, ask for the average assessed value of all the homes, apply all the taxing components to it to come up with what their tax bill would be. This first chart here is on the consolidated levy. So as you can see, the dark blue is actually the average home value, residential value that we were given. And then when you apply the consolidated levy process to get to the tax bill, the red is then the tax bill. So in my opinion, if you look at it, if the blue is higher than the red, you're getting a pretty good deal for the taxes that you're paying based upon the value of your home. So this page here is the consolidated information. If you go to the next page, that is based upon the city levy only component of the property tax bill.
So these two pages is something I asked for shortly after I come on council, because all the other pages are not based on valuation. So that was always an argument. So if you wanna, I did some calculations, so if you wanna write these down real quick so you can have some. If you wanna go to page 20, go underneath Carroll. And how I'm gonna give you a factor number. What you do is you take in the red the 2,423, you divide that by 167,000, you're gonna get a factor of 0.014. Okay, now go over to Denison, for example, if you wanna know what the taxes would be in Denison if they had the Carroll factor. You take 123,275 times that 0.014, and Carroll's taxes in Denison would be 1,725 compared to what Denison's 2,467. So if you have an argument, somebody says your taxes are high compared to other towns, you can use this and use that factor and say, you know, in Denison, your taxes would be $700 more a year with Denison's taxes, but if you had Carroll's rate in there, it's that much less. Now, on this, I'm going to give you the Carroll factor on the city only, the next page. That factor is 0.006. And I did the Denison one real quick. Carroll's number would be 739 compared to Denison's 1,191. And you can take that factor times every one of the blue numbers on that chart. So that's your basis for letting people know where we stand.
And you could actually figure it out for any house, whether it be a $500,000 house or a
Yes,
$50,000,
yes.
you could give them the exact.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Interesting.
But this is, what Laura and the crew did is they got the average home cost of each one of these cities.
Mhm.
So you can say, per city, this is where we stand.
Right.
Okay.
Well, you can go back to page 10 too to prove your point, Laverne, to look at the total taxable valuation. Go to Denison, their properties aren't worth way as much as ours, the assessed valuation. So that Laverne is pointing to what, your inverse relationship between if you have low property values, you're gonna have to raise your levy just to provide basic services. That's what you're saying, right?
Right.
Am I getting it?
Mhm.
Okay, good. Thank you.
But that's always been an argument, you know, you're not doing assessed values, you're not comparing that. Well, these two charts do. Takes that equation out for you as a council member to be able to stand up for where we're at.
I want to thank you guys for putting this together too. All you guys that were, I mean, I know that it's a headache looking at it, so I can only imagine putting it together. So.
Well, it took me a long
But people don't
time,
know this
so I
is,
appreciate
people don't know that are watching, this is a massive book that was put together. So I truly do thank you guys for what you guys do.
So the final page, I'll make a really brief comment, is we summarized the full-time equivalent employees by department, and you can see all those listed out in each individual department when they talk about their budget request. We'll address if there is any change or any request to change the personnel. So that's the summary that I was planning on going through tonight, just to give you a quick little overview. The tab C is in capital projects, which each department will talk about their capital requests and when they go through their departmental items. D is debt, and then E is the summary. This is a good summary of each of the departments on what is then through in the information of tabs F through Z. So, are there any questions that you can think of right now before?
Yeah, I had one. That $6,500 for the senior citizens that we had that they were given.
Yep.
Yes,
Do you know what that equates for our dollar amount?
I do not, but I can
Okay.
maybe ask.
You're old enough to apply. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that, Laura? So what does that mean, $6,500 for senior citizens?
So House File 718 puts some new provisions into place when it comes to figuring out the taxable valuation of some homes. So
Okay.
if you're a homeowner 65 and older, you can fill out a form just like for the homestead credit. You own your home, you automatically get $4,850 off your assessed value when you're figuring in your tax
Okay,
value.
yeah.
The, same thing for the people, individuals 65 and older, instead of using that $4,850, $6,500.
Okay.
Did I explain that right?
It's an additional amount.
Additional amount, it's an additional amount. It's actually in a two-year step.
Last,
This year's not
last
quite
year
as
was
much.
half that amount, now it's 6,500
You have
for
to
every year
re-sign.
from now on, and I don't,
I don't know if you.
I don't think
once you-
no, once you
sign
fill it
up.
out, once you have, you're
Yeah,
done.
you're done. Okay.
But I don't know if there's a sunset on it.
There might not be, I don't know.
But last year was half that amount, and this year's 6,500 for however long they, I don't know the amount of years.
On page 14, do you have the higher amounts too? Of what that did to their tax? So
I do
it
not, but I
caps out
can
at 200.
figure out some information. Do you have some suggestions on what values you'd like to see?
I guess it-
500,000?
probably 500, 500, yeah, I mean, it just
If
says,
you take 100,000 times 5, will that work?
does that work or does it affect it? Or does it affect it differently? I guess is my question.
I don't know.
I'd run it through the formula and time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to just see, probably
Theoretically, yes,
350,
but-
500, 750,
Come
I'm sorry, what were those numbers?
like
Well, what's 200,000?
350,
You want
what,
350?
350, 500 and 750, something like that?
Okay. Yep,
1, 2,
I will have that.
And then I guess a ballpark at the outlandish one. Is there like a crazy one out there?
Well, I don't even
So
know.
Jason,
Do we have a
Jason,
$1 million home in town?
Yeah.
I just
How about
did
the one
that.
south In Deer Creek, that was just for sale. Is it still for
Yeah,
sale?
it's about-
Wasn't that around
That's
100,000
not
or?
quite, that's all.
100 to 200.
Jason, I just did 200,000 compared to 100,000. It's a 1226, and it's not the same. On the 100,000, it's 584, and if you take 1226, it's 16 or 613. So it's different.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering if,
You can't take
how it affects
You can't,
yeah.
you can't take what I
and
just
so-
said. Take 100
yes.
times 5.
Yeah, we can run those numbers. That's
Okay, thank you. Sorry to put more work on it.
That's fine.
I think it's a computer system though, right? Okay.
She is the computer system.
That all you have for us, Nora?
That's all I have,
Okay.
unless there's other questions or other things you can. So we'll start-
That's all right.
we'll start
I'm gonna
really
read
quick.
this
We'll
anyway
start
yet, 'cause I
budget
don't want
work sessions in 2
She's
weeks.
already got those out.
If you have any questions, please call City Hall. Otherwise, we'll plan on, February 5th at 5:15, starting with our first official budget
Yeah,
work session.
well, it's,
Where at?
it's
It's
pretty
close.
yeah.
Here?
But it's
Gives
not.
you a guess.
Right, Chia?
Can I ask,
Laura-
Yep.
totally maybe not an important question, but how many employees are we short?
We have a few open positions, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but yeah, we do have a few open. What's in that budget book right now is what the authorized, we're working through replacing some, yes.
All right, committee reports, I trust we've all read those. The mayor has a comment tonight, and he'll be brief, I promise. But it's important to bring this out. If you look back there and you see those nice trophies that are on that table back there, those don't come without a lot of effort, and I'm gonna read a press release regarding what those actually are. On Saturday, January 20th, 24, during the annual banquet of the Iowa Baseball Coaches Association, the City of Carroll and Merchants Park was awarded the following awards: West Region Diamond of the Year and State Diamond of the Year. Now they're referring to the baseball diamond here in Carroll at Merchants Park. This is Carroll's third time winning the awards and first time since 2012. This award puts Carroll Merchants Park into a league with only 2 other past winners that have also won the award 3 times. That's Coon Rapids, Baird, and Linmar. These awards are not possible without Scott Parcher. Scott won the 2023 T. Ray Frame Award. That's Park Maintenance Award through Iowa Parks and Recreation Association. And he's been working on this ball field since 1980. And even after his retirement, which was in 2018, Scott has continued to work on Merchants Park as a part-time caretaker. And I'm gonna go off the page here for a second and comment that the last time I saw Scott Parcher, I drove through the baseball fields, through the parking lot on my way to work and glanced over and there's Scott at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was after school had started, so I'm gonna say September, October. And he's on his hands and knees, I assume picking the few weeds that there must be there. There can't be very many. But that's what he was doing at 7 o'clock in the morning on his day off since he's retired.
So along with Scott, there are many other duties and work that has been put in by Tom Weber, Park Superintendent, and his crew, Mike Heidoff, Mike Mertis, and Tyler Schultes. We're very proud of our Parks Department's hard work and dedication, and all play a role in why Merchants Park is the 2023 Diamond of the Year. I was really congratulate you guys. Chad, you're a part of that team as well.
No, they don't let me.
So, oh, they don't let you in there, okay. Well, I greatly appreciate it, and I think that's worth mentioning, and so I wanted to bring that, especially anybody that's been in Carroll very long knows about Scott and how much dedication he's put toward a lot of things in
Is there a
Carroll,
time when they give
particularly
those
that.
to
What's
them?
that?
Is there a time when they give them to them, or?
Chad has a,
They're still working on it.
Yeah,
He
they're
doesn't
gonna
like
do
doing
something.
Anything in public, so.
Scott's kind of, I don't,
he,
they want
we're
him to
working on
accept
trying
it.
to get him honored at a
Yeah.
more public setting, so.
This is public, I thought we were all friends here.
Not enough public. Be more public.
All right, any comments from the city council? And any comments from the city manager?
You've heard enough from me tonight.
Okay, any comments on anyone who would like to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn in a second?
Cornell?
Yes.
Atherton?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Seaman?
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank you very much.